a good start to the talk, wouldn't it? To unmute myself and allow myself to speak, and give myself a voice. So thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure to see some of the incredible women and just hear some of the beautiful stories that are being shared. And one of the things that Natalie I heard speak about was superpower. So I want to talk a little bit about my superpower, and the title that I gave this talk was From Zero to Hero: How I Created Trust as My Superpower in My Life as a Parent. And this has been a big one for me, so I'm really looking forward to sharing some of this with you. Now, I wanted to have more trust in my life. I wanted to feel more confident as a parent, like I knew what I was doing as a parent, because so many of us fall into this trap of really not understanding why we can't follow our instincts and why we kind of have to read 16,000 books and get told what to do. So this is what I wanted for myself in my life. And when I talk about this, there's kind of an understanding or an awareness that I had, which is the energy that I bring to my parenting is everything. And I had to be able to really imagine that I was bringing that energy that I wanted to bring. So imagining that I already was that confident parent that knew exactly what they were doing, because they could trust their intuition and they could trust their instincts, which I really didn't have before. So imagining that I already was the parent that I wanted to be. Now, my story, because obviously I haven't always been a parent empowerment mentor, and it was far from it when I first began my journey to becoming a mum. Now, my transition into parenting was far from smooth. Yeah, I liken it to a bit of a car crash, because it was like I could see the debris of my former life, scattered all around me. And I was just like, oh my God, what the heck has just happened? And it was a hell of a journey. And my transition, because my old career was a corporate architect, to stay-at-home mum was exactly that. It was one hell of a journey. I was so confused coming from this logical and very rational way of being an architect, why my baby didn't have like a milliliter gauge up the side of it telling me how much milk it had had, because that would have really helped the way that my brain worked back then. And because I didn't have that, it really tripped me up in terms of the way that I was as a corporate architect, journeying into this life of sort of chaos of being a mother. So my journey, this car crash, which I'm starting to share a little bit about, ended up with me being hospitalized with severe postnatal depression and anxiety. I was in hospital for 3 months with my little fella. And, severe postnatal depression and anxiety. I wasn't expecting that. And I separated from my husband. Yeah, even though I told him I was, you better be in for the long haul, honey, because I ain't doing this by myself. And in the end, we went like this. So we ended up being co-parents, and you know what? That wasn't what I signed up for when I first jumped into this journey as becoming a parent. And what I've found looking back, because obviously, my hindsight glasses are 20/20 vision, and it's a much different place to view from. But the biggest thing that tripped me up in my life as a parent, that really got in the way, was trust. Yeah, my absolute lack of trust in myself and others around me, and in the world as a whole. And the ingredients, let's say, that created my recipe of disaster, because it wasn't the smoothest entry into parenting. It was a bit of a car crash. And when I start to understand, or the way that I speak about it as being like, okay, what were the ingredients around this? What was my recipe of disaster? And I came up with a few things. And the first one was trying to do everything perfectly. Oh my God, this perfectionist drive to do everything perfect. That was a massive thing that completely tripped me up in my life as a parent in my earlier years. The second thing that I wanted to speak to is trying to micromanage everything, trying to absolutely control and have it all micromanaged. And this was my architecture background coming in, very rational, very logical, very linear. And as we know, parenting is all of exactly the opposite of all of those things. So trying to micromanage everything was definitely something that chucked a big old spanner in the works in my earlier years as a parent. The other thing is trying to get it right. Now, I was trying to get it right all the time. It was absolutely the biggest drive in me to try and get everything right, because I was terrified of getting it wrong. Yeah, I was terrified of getting it wrong. Let's face it, being a parent is one long list of getting it.
I think you're frozen, Jacqueline. It's not just me, is it? Like she's actually frozen. Okay.
All right, Jacqueline, just comment in the chat box if you can hear us. Sorry, guys, that's the first time that's happened all day long. So Jacqueline, go ahead and comment if you can hear us. And hopefully she'll just start again. Not start again, but carry on.
Yeah. It looks like she is on the line. She's dropped out, I think. Must be a connectivity thing. While we wait for her to come back, I just want to say, Natasha, thank you for showing up so incredibly today. For those of you who don't know, Natasha and I literally connected this morning. We had one of our speakers had a fall and we had a slot we had to fill. So being prepared to speak at the drop of a hat is a skill, it's a gift. You really brought everything you had. And I'm just so honored to have met you. And thank you for saying yes.
I appreciate you so much. You are amazing. Thank you for providing the platform. And I was just scrambling, just, hoping that I could do it justice. So thank you.
An incredible job. Thank you so much. It's people like you that make me want to wake up every morning and keep going. Some days I want to give up. It just feels too hard to keep all of this together and keep it going. And then every once in a while, just the spark of a person shows up. And yeah, thank you.
I literally am trying not to cry. I'm glad the light is not too bright. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely incredible. Yeah, so we want to offer women opportunities to just be on call so that if we have a schedule, I mean, this is going to be a crazy month with 15 speakers every single day. So for those of you who are, we will just call on you when we need a speaker to fill that gap and step in. I mean, this is 465 people we're trying to coordinate over the next 31 days. We're literally online 31 days straight, and we can't do it without your support. So if you have friends, if you have colleagues that you can inspire to step up and use their voices, please connect them with us. And when you are coming in for a session, the whole idea is you have to bring your tribe to come and listen to you speak and to support you. So that if we have 5 speakers in a panel and they each bring 50, 100 people, we can really have the energy we want to get out of this experience. Not just by inspiring each other as speakers and holding space, but transmitting the energy of the stories and the messages and the learnings and the teachings as well. So that's going to be something else we need to work on. I know, Nat, you and I were talking about it a little bit earlier, that we're trying to find the best strategy to get people into the room. We've tried advertising. There's too much going on online. People will show up to support you as the speaker. And if you let them know what session you're speaking in and if they can stay and hold space for the 5 women in that session, then it'll be fantastic. The Q&A session that we have at the end of each of these groupings of speakings is really so that the people who are coming to listen become part of the dialogue. We're inviting men Chris, it's great to see you online. I know you were one of the first male speakers who came to speak here in Wellington. I've been dying to reconnect with you to see what you're doing in the TED space, especially now that everything is going online. I just heard that TED's event has to cancel. They had a huge event planned for May, and they've had to cancel their event because of COVID as well. So we're all having to transition and start using these digital spaces. The other thing, I will just keep talking, Nat, if you don't mind, while we're waiting for Jacqueline to come back, is all of you need
She's back now.
Is she back?
Yeah.
All right. If you're ready to to continue, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you for holding the space. I've completely dropped out, so I will find my flow again. So I think what I left with when I dropped out was that ownership of that recipe of disaster, of what happened for me around trust, was the really great place to start. So jumping back in, because I trust that this is the flow that we're having at the moment while I'm talking about trust. So what I wanted to speak to was that I still remember the day. That I told my oldest boy that before he came along, I wasn't a parent. Yeah, I wasn't a parent. It was completely new to me. And that he's never been a kid before, and I'd never been a parent before. And how about we jump into this journey and we work it out along the way? Yeah, we work it out together. So that was, it's a little example or a demonstration of how I started to roll as a parent once I'd started to do a lot of work around trust for myself, and how I could find out ways to stop, to stop the constant worrying, to stop the fear, to stop the control and the micromanaging and all of these pieces that became that recipe of disaster that was absolutely sabotaging any ounce of joy or pleasure in my life as a parent. The working too hard, the not looking after myself, that treadmill that I found myself on, and that so many others do even before they jump into their lives as parents. But let's face it, when we jump into our lives as parents, it up levels, right? It up levels, because we've got so many more other aspects and other people that are needing our attention, connection, and all of that. So the rat race, learning how to stop the busyness and the constant to-do list, and the absolute need to fill every damn second of my life, that piece. The need to do what everybody else was doing as well was in that for me, and the need to be somewhere other than where I was, other than where I am. So these are all other pieces that were part of this recipe of disaster that I really wanted to stop, and I really wanted to find out how to do that. So I've put together 4 tips to invite more trust into your life the way that I did, or to create your superpower recipe. We've done the recipe of disaster. Now let's move into the superpower recipe, because that's where I want to put my focus. And I know, Natasha, after catching the end of your talk, it was like, this is what are we focusing on? It's so easy to get kind of, sucked down into the spiral of all of the stuff that's happened to us, and get really trapped in those big feelings that can be created by it. But, when we can shift our focus into creating our superpower, then the superpower recipe really starts to take on a life of its own. So tip number one that I'm going to share with you: trust is an internal game. It starts here, not out there. It starts here. And for me, when I work with people, and when I even just have conversations with people out there in the world, it's like many of them wait or expect others to make them feel safe. They expect it to come from outside of themselves, that others have to prove themselves in a way that they are trustworthy before I could open to trust them. And when you start to do the work, that this is an internal game, what it does is that your discernment radar, if you like, strengthens. Yeah, it's like a muscle that you start to work, and that radar becomes stronger so that you can discern whether another is trustworthy or not expect them to prove it to you. So it becomes this internal game. So that was the first tip that I really wanted to offer. And number two, and I really love this one because it's such an important piece, is find the freedom to fail. You know, find the freedom to stuff it up and to get it wrong and to muck it up, and, you know, really find that freedom to fail. And this is about losing the control. Yeah, and I was an absolute control freak in my past, an absolute control freak. And, you know, it ended up in me becoming this parent, this recipe of disaster, and ending up with me in hospital because I couldn't navigate this world of absolute chaos of a newborn baby. You know, in my architecture world, I could navigate a team of 10 people under me, and I didn't know what the heck to do with a newborn baby because it was so different. So, you know, having a baby, parenting, is a lot of it is chaos, and we kind of amble through this chaotic space. And if we've got these controlling tendencies, it really doesn't help. So losing the control, losing the perfectionism, finding the freedom to fail is massive. Letting go of the need to get everything right, trying to control not only every aspect of your own experience, but also, you know, the experience of everyone else around us. And I know that played a big part in the way that I was as a parent. Trying to control myself, trying to control other people, and trying to control my environment around me. And part of this, which I love to talk about, and I call catastrophizing, you know, catastrophizing, like overanalyzing everything and going down these mental highways of, oh, but this could happen, and if that happened, then this could happen, or this could happen, and oh my God, you know, exhausting much? Like, yes, very, you know, just there goes all of my energy. So, you know, that is often why so many of the population suffer from constant fatigue, you know, needing 2 coffees in the morning to get them started and alcohol in the evening to wind them down, because it's exhausting to attempt to control every aspect and every experience of your life. It's exhausting. So stop it. You know, remember a friend of mine early on when I was starting to really do some work around this for myself, and they sent me this video, and it was literally a therapist who said, yeah, I can do this session in 5 minutes, and he literally just said, stop it. Just stop it. So that's where I'm at. It's like, let go of this control, find the freedom to fail. So tip number 3, own the fear, own it. You know, take ownership of the fear that's there. And this is not about pretending that it doesn't exist, because that doesn't help. Yeah, it's like we're just trying to run away from it. But if we own it, if we take ownership of the fear, then we can start to question it. And this is really powerful. Because as I said, most of us are trying to get away from our fear, pretend it doesn't exist, and then it just tends to yell at us louder. You know, it's like the voice of fear gets louder. If you take ownership of it, it doesn't remove it. However, it dilutes the power that it has over us, so then we can start to question it. Now, the acronym false evidence appearing real is a really useful one here. And when I think about the impact that understanding that fear is not real, yeah, it's not real. And if you just think about everything that you've ever done that scared you, yeah, like coming on a Facebook Live, you know, talking on a summit, talking in front of people, you know, going skydiving, all of these things that have scared you, and you get to the other side of doing it, right? You get to the other side and you think, oh man, that wasn't even half as bad as I thought, because that's where we all end up, right? That's where we all end up. It all turned out okay in the end, because it always does. What would it look like if you can bring that awareness from next week or from next month, you know, where you're going to eventually find it, into the present moment? Yeah, into the present moment, and have it now, have that understanding now. And to do this, it's got to come from a place of owning the fear where you're currently at. You know, really owning it, owning your current reality, because otherwise you're just reacting and trying to run away from it. So, you know, when something is so terrible, it actually ends up being the best thing that could have happened. Yeah, you lose your job and you end up in another job, and then you meet your new partner, or whatever it is. The way that things unfold, you look back and think, man, that wasn't half as bad as I thought it was at the time. So reach out and grab that awareness from the future and have it in this moment. Yeah, it's absolutely possible. So the last tip that I wanted to share with you, tip number 4, and this is a really big one for the current climate, is embrace the uncertainty. Yeah, embrace it, because the very nature of being human is uncertain. It's uncertain, and we're desperately trying to find certainty in every moment. And the very nature of being human is uncertain. And how okay you are in that uncertainty, in the not knowing, creates your ability to trust. Creates your ability to have confidence, to be able to sit in that space of uncertainty and be in it and be okay in it. It creates your ability to be with what's happening, not just want to run in the other direction and react to it. And this is letting go of the need to have it all figured out, the need to work it all out, the need to understand everything, the need for it all to make sense. What would it be like if you could just stop needing to know? Now, this is a really, really, really big one out there in our lives at the moment. You can see it unfolding everywhere. And in our lives as parents, when we're looking at the books, just give me the answer, rather than looking at our baby and getting the information from there or within. So we have the ingredients now, to create the recipe of trust as a superpower, rather than this recipe of disaster, which is where I came from. Trust is an internal game, to find the freedom to fail, own the fear, then question it, embrace the certainty. This is what creates trust. Trust in yourself, trust in your partner, trust in your relationship, your children, other people, the world. And this is pretty important as a person, and it's vitally important as a parent. So what happened for me in my world? What were the benefits for me doing work around trust? Because it had huge benefits. And I was able to occupy this place in the present, not dragging up the past or reliving it. Because I could play that, I was depressed with postnatal depression for 3 months and, hospitalized and anxiety. I could play that card for the rest of my life if I wanted to. I could relive it, or I could sit in the present moment of the gifts that journey gave me, now that I can support other parents going through their own challenges, their own version of the same stuff. So what this does is, allowing to inform, not allowing the past to inform the present, just leaving it there, leaving it in the past and seeing the gifts that it's given me. And I was able to occupy this place in the present without catastrophizing about what might happen. And all of this space opened up and all of this energy opened up, because I wasn't using it as a way of exhausting myself, with focusing on the stuff that really didn't help me, didn't support me. And my relationship with time completely shifted. And that's the last bit that I want to leave you with, because as my thoughts and energy were no longer being swallowed up in my recipe of disaster, where I had zero trust, and this is one of the biggest beliefs that I had as a parent, and that I hear from so many others out there, is that I don't have any time simply because I'm a parent. I don't have any time now because I'm a parent. And it's just not true unless we continue to make it true. So work on trust, make it your superpower. Work on this recipe to create your superpower, and expand time while you're doing it. Because I want that, said every parent everywhere. So that's the last, that's what I wanted to leave you with. That was my spiel on Zero to Hero, how I created 2 levels of trust in my life as a parent, and now how I'm empowering parents to do the same in their lives as moms and dads.